The smile that silences your soul. They say you're a good man, polite, respectful, easy to be around. You never raise your voice. You never make a scene. But tell me, when was the last time you felt truly alive? You weren't born to be agreeable. You were trained to be. Trained to soften your words, shrink your presence, apologize for wanting more. And now, you're exhausted, loved for who you pretend to be, ignored for who you truly are. He who despises himself still respects himself as one who despises. Nietzsche. Even your self-hatred wears a suit and smiles. The truth is brutal. Your niceness is not a virtue. It's a survival strategy, a mask forged in fear, polished with shame, and worn so long, you forgot what your real face looks like. But here's what no one tells you. The world doesn't reward the kind. It rewards the courageous, not the man who plays it safe, the one who dares to offend by being real. You think being nice will save you, but it's slowly killing you from the inside out. And unless you wake up, you won't be remembered for being kind. You'll be forgotten for never showing up at all. The disease of the gentle lie. There's a lie so seductive, so well-dressed, it's become a virtue. It's the lie that says, if you're good, you'll be loved. If you're nice, you'll be respected. But here's the reality no one wants to face. Being nice is often just fear in disguise. Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of being seen, raw, and unfiltered. You were never taught to be strong. You were taught to be pleasant, to wear your smile like armor, to soften your tone, to make sure everyone's comfortable while you silently suffocate. And you thought that was noble. But tell me this, if your kindness costs you your voice, your needs, your identity, is it still kindness? Or is it self-erasure in a polite costume? To be yourself in a world that is constantly trying to make you something else is the greatest accomplishment. Ralph Waldo Emerson. But the nice guy doesn't accomplish that. He becomes what others expect. He mirrors the room. He blends in. He doesn't disturb, doesn't disrupt. He dissolves. And still, he wonders why he feels empty. You see, the world doesn't ignore the nice guy because it's cruel. It ignores him because he's forgettable. He never offends, but he never inspires. He's never hated, but he's never truly loved. He tiptoes through life avoiding the very things that make a man visible: conviction, clarity, and confrontation. You have your way, I have my way. As for the right way, the correct way, it does not exist. Nietzsche. The nice guy doesn't have a way, he borrows one. He lives a recycled life, handed down by parents who feared conflict, teachers who demanded obedience, and a culture that punishes masculine presence unless it's soft, small, and silent. And so he withers. Not because he's weak, but because he's obedient. And here's the most tragic part. He calls it virtue. He thinks biting his tongue is maturity. He thinks self-abandonment is emotional intelligence. He thinks staying in places where he's unseen is loyalty. But it's not. It's cowardice, masquerading as compassion. And it's everywhere. A generation of men smiling while they rot, apologizing for their truth, negotiating with their own soul just to avoid a raised eyebrow. They've been told that masculinity is dangerous unless it's passive. That ambition is toxic unless it's quiet. That strength is admirable, so long as it doesn't challenge anyone. But here's what Nietzsche warned. The noble soul has reverence for itself. The nice guy has none. He doesn't revere himself. He edits himself. He waits for validation. He waits to be chosen. He waits for someone to tell him it's okay to be who he is. And while he waits, life moves on without him. Because the truth is, no one respects a man who doesn't respect his own boundaries. No one follows a man who won't defend his own fire, and no one loves a man they can't feel. The most terrifying thing is to accept oneself completely. Carl Jung. But the nice guy never dares to do that. He plays roles. He lives in half-truths. He says yes when his soul screams no. He laughs when he wants to rage. And slowly, the world starts treating him exactly as he treats himself. like a man who doesn't matter. Because here's a brutal law of life. If you do not stand firm in who you are, you will become whatever the world needs you to be in the moment. And that's not a life. That's a performance. You weren't born to bow. You were born to build. You weren't born to please. You were born to pierce. And you will never access your power, never taste respect, real love, real loyalty, until you stop playing the harmless servant and start living like the man you were meant to become. But that begins where most men refuse to go, into the fire, into the discomfort, the truth, the conflict, the loneliness, the exile that always comes when a man decides to stop performing and start existing. Because this is nature's law. The man who dares to offend by being real will always outlive the man who dies being agreeable. So ask yourself, are you nice because you're noble or because you're scared? Because if it's fear, then your niceness is not a virtue, it's your prison. The rebellion of the higher man. There comes a moment in every man's life when he can no longer pretend. He looks in the mirror and sees it, not the fake smile, not the well-rehearsed politeness, but the truth behind his eyes. A man who is starving, starving for meaning, starving for fire, starving to become who he was before the world tamed him. That moment is the beginning of rebellion, but not the kind they warn you about. Not rebellion against the world. Rebellion against the version of you that surrendered. Because until that war is fought, until that mask is shattered, you will never be free. The one who follows the crowd will usually go no further than the crowd. The one who walks alone is likely to find himself in places no one has ever been. Albert Einstein. But the nice guy never walks alone. He waits, he watches, he mirrors what's safe, he plays the middle. And the middle is where dreams go to die. He doesn't pursue what he wants. He waits for permission. He doesn't speak his mind. He checks the temperature of the room. He doesn't lead. He blends. But blending is not belonging, and safety is not fulfillment. The rebellion begins the day a man says, I would rather be real and alone than fake and surrounded. It begins with pain, with discomfort, with loss. Because when you stop being the man they like, you start losing things. Their approval, their applause, their control over you. But what you gain is a spine. And once you have a spine, everything changes. You stop chasing women who only love your softness. You stop begging for opportunities from people who don't see you. You stop apologizing for your hunger, your ambition, your masculine edge. You become what Nietzsche called the Übermensch, the higher man. Not superior in ego, but superior in courage. You must become who you are. Nietzsche. Not who your parents wanted, not who your girlfriend tolerates, not who society praises, who you are. And that version of you, he doesn't ask for respect. He commands it, through presence, not performance. He's the man who walks into a room and doesn't shrink. Not because he's loud, but because he's whole. He doesn't dilute his opinions. He doesn't tiptoe around truth. He doesn't need to be understood, because he understands himself. And that is terrifying to a culture built on compliance. Because men like this are ungovernable, not violent, not reckless, but deeply sovereign. And sovereign men cannot be manipulated. That's why the system praises the nice guy, the man who waits, the man who folds, the man who asks, is this okay? Before he dares to move. But the higher man doesn't ask, he moves. And when he moves, the world either adjusts or gets left behind. Freedom is not given, it is taken. Camus. The nice guy wants to be chosen, but the higher man chooses himself. He doesn't sit on the sidelines hoping to be picked. He builds his own arena. He doesn't seek to avoid offense. He seeks to embody truth, because he knows if the truth offends them, they were never meant to walk with him. That's the shift, the internal revolution that separates the man who lives fully from the one who slowly fades into irrelevance. And yet most men will never take that step. Not because they can't, but because the mask is too comfortable. But here's the cost. Every day you stay nice instead of true. You get smaller, you fade, you disappear. until one day you become a stranger in your own life, liked by everyone except yourself. It is no measure of health to be well-adjusted to a profoundly sick society. Krishnamurti. So stop adjusting, stop adapting, stop conforming, burn the script, shatter the mirror, reclaim your edge, because that's what the world respects. Not politeness, presence, not approval, alignment. The rebellion of the higher man isn't about destruction, it's about resurrection, the death of the boy who needed applause, the birth of the man who breathes fire. So ask yourself right now, are you ready to be misunderstood, to be hated, to be exiled? Because that's the price of greatness. And Nietzsche left you the map. The higher we soar, the smaller we appear to those who cannot fly. Let the small mind shrink you no longer. Your truth is not too much. Your fire is not too dangerous. Your presence is not too loud. It's exactly what this world is starving for. A man who dares to become himself. The final ascent, from approval to power. There's a silent moment in a man's life when he realizes he's been performing his entire life, performing to be liked, performing to be accepted, performing to be enough in a world that never stops raising the bar. He thought love would set him free, but what he got was a leash made of expectations, tighter each time he betrayed himself just to keep the peace. That's the trap, a trap disguised as virtue. Be agreeable, be kind, be safe. But safety is not sovereignty, and kindness without backbone is not love. It's self-erasure. He who trims himself to suit everyone will soon whittle himself away. Raymond Hall. That's where most men die, not with a bullet, but with a whimper. They trade their fire for validation, their edge for comfort, their truth for applause. And what did they get? A life that looks good on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Because no amount of approval can fill the void left by your own abandonment of self. But there's another path, a higher one, harder, yes, but real. It's not found in self-help books, not taught in schools, and definitely not encouraged by the women who fear your awakening. It's the path of inner power. Power that isn't loud, but immovable. Power that doesn't demand control, because it radiates command. This power isn't found in domination. It's found in alignment. A man in alignment doesn't need to chase. He doesn't need to convince. He doesn't even need to speak much, because when he walks into a room, everybody feels something shift, not because he's trying, but because he's become. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. Carl Jung. That's the final ascent. To stop molding yourself into who she wants, who society praises, or who the algorithm rewards, and instead forge yourself into who God designed you to be. That man, he doesn't argue for his worth, he embodies it. He doesn't beg for loyalty, he inspires it. He doesn't try to be a good man in their eyes, he becomes a dangerous man in control of his own soul. And that kind of man cannot be used. You see, the world doesn't actually want you strong. They say they do, until you become so centered, so sovereign, that you can no longer be guilted, manipulated, or seduced by the false. Suddenly you're cold, you're toxic, you're intimidating. But you're not. You've simply stopped bleeding for people who never planned to heal. You've stopped performing, and that's when you finally start living. Not for their love, not for their permission, not even for success, but for truth. Because when a man is willing to lose everything fake, he gains everything real. So what does this look like? It looks like walking away from the girl who makes your body burn, but disrespects your soul. It looks like saying no to comfort when purpose calls you to war. It looks like risking being alone, because you'd rather be whole than liked. It looks like facing the abyss inside you without flinching, and becoming the storm instead of hiding from the rain. The final ascent is quiet. There's no crowd, no finish line, no gold medal. Just a man standing in his own light after years of running from his shadow. That's real power. Not controlling others, but commanding yourself. Not being feared, but being respected by the only one who truly matters. You. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Carl Jung. This is your moment to stop calling it fate, to stop blaming women, to stop blaming society, to stop blaming the past. This is your moment to take back the reins. The fire's already inside you. It never left. It was only waiting for you to stop apologizing for it. Now stoke it, fan it, let it burn. Because the world doesn't need more nice guys. It needs dangerous men with virtue. Men who can kill the weakness in themselves before it kills their future. And the final law? Guard your fire or die in her storm. The quiet triumph and the choice that's always yours. You've heard enough voices, the gurus, the women, the world, all telling you who to be, how to feel, what to tolerate. But beneath all the noise, there's a silence. And in that silence is you, unmasked, unfiltered, unbreakable. That's the man the world fears, the one who no longer chases approval, who no longer bends his spine for a smile, who finally says, I'd rather stand alone in truth than be loved in a lie. And that's your quiet triumph. Not a loud rebellion, not revenge, but the still, grounded presence of a man who no longer trades his fire for comfort. Because power isn't about dominance, it's about sovereignty. You own you, your mind, your mission, your boundaries. And that makes you untouchable. But every day, the world will try to buy you back. So you'll need to choose, again and again. Be the nice guy they can use, or the stoic man they cannot break. Subscribe if you're ready to walk that path. Not to impress the world, but to finally reclaim yourself.